All right, hello everyone. How are we doing? Thanks for tuning in. All right, so we're going to talk about my country profile. The country I chose was Sweden. Now, I made a recording earlier. It was a half an hour long, so I'm not going to spend as much time in that because I don't want to be here for that long, and I know you don't want to be here for that long, and we have quite a bit of information to cover. So, we're going to talk a little bit about some general info. The official language of Sweden is Swedish. Go figure. Now, 90% of the population also speaks English, okay? So if you're going over there for a vacation, whatever, chances are you're going to run into someone that speaks English, can help you out. The country is split into 3 regions. I'm not going to pronounce those. But my last name is Nordlund, and I've always known I came from Sweden, but now I even know what region my last name came from. The capital of Sweden is Stockholm. Stockholm is an extremely unique capital. It spans 14 different islands, so it's one city, one capital city that spans over 14 islands, has over 50 bridges connecting everything. Super cool city. Look up some pictures. Super cool town. Okay, population is about 9.8 million. There was one source that I was looking at that actually had the population at 10 million. As it achieved in January, but that was the only source I found on it. Most of the ones I found were 9.8, 9.7, so I went with that number. So we're going to talk a little bit about the general culture. I'm going to go more into detail on each one of these later, but they really value strong relationships with friends, family, business partners. There's a high level of trust in this culture. They're a non-confrontational culture, which can be seen in their political system. They've declared neutrality in wars for over 100 years. Last time they were in war was during the Napoleonic Wars, and they actually lost one of their regions, the Netherlands, to Russia. They are a low-context culture, so you say what you mean what you say. Little small talk. We're going to go more into detail on that later. Okay, again, they're equality-oriented. Okay, they make decisions in teams. Oftentimes it takes them more time to make decisions because of this. But we're going to continue on here. So one thing that I need to cover is the Church of Sweden. So the Church of Sweden has had a huge influence on the culture because it was a national church and was tied into the political system. It has changed a lot of what the country looks like today and their values and their beliefs. So basically, the Church of Sweden was established in the revolution of Martin Luther when he broke off from the Catholic Church. And therefore, since it's so old, it has become a church that, has literally molded the political structure and the beliefs of the people. At one point, the church had 95% of the country in attendance. Okay? 95%. They had 95% of the country as members of the church. Now today it's more like 64%, as the country becomes more secular. But over time, that percent will drop. But because it was such a big percentage, it has drastically changed the culture. Now there is also a point where in 1999. When the Swedes joined the European Union requires that they have a separation of church and state. But the people voted that they were to join the Union, and the church was separated from the state, therefore giving the political system more freedom, and people that were and representatives that are in the political system to be able to hold a higher status in the system if they're not members of the church. So, talking about the political system, let's talk a little bit about how it's different than the U.S. So, Sweden is a parliamentary democracy, which means that the House, the Senate, the presidency, all of that government is included in the parliament. And instead of voting for a president, what the Swedes do is they vote for the parliament, and they vote for a party, and the winning party then selects a prime minister to reign for 4 years, and then the votes are put up again. And the people then come back and decide, were they good? Do we want them back? If yes, they vote him in again, and you can serve as many four years consecutively as you want, but you have to be voted in, like the U.S. Now, remember we talked about the equality value that the Swedes' culture consists of is evident here in their political system, in their votes. The losing party is still included. They're not kicked out. Oh, you lost. Get out of here. You're done. No, they include them here in a matter of checks and balances. The losing party has the freedom to challenge any legislation that the party in power is arguing about or pushing through. We're talking about that losing party has the equal authority to challenge the legislation and take it out of argument if need be. They also have the power to revoke the prime minister on a population vote of, it's called a no trust vote. They have the power to motion that. You need so many names on a petition and lots of different rules and stigmas on that. But Riksdag is actually the name of Sweden's parliament. I don't actually know if it's pronounced Riksdag. I couldn't find a exact pronunciation on it. Have to ask when I go visit there. But anyway, the parliament consisted of 15 committees. They split up. They talk about what legislation should be argued about on the floor and which ones should be passed and which ones should just be thrown out, much like the U.S. So next we're going to talk about the business culture and what that looks like. So basically, according to Walker's definitions of hierarchical and context and power and decision making, and we're going to talk about where Sweden fits in that. So Sweden does not believe in a hierarchy style of business. They believe in a even equality spread of business. So decisions are made in teams, okay? They want authority to be well spread, which makes them extremely good at delegation, like Walker talks about in the power dimension of his book. But also, they're a low context culture. So again, mean what you say what you mean. This also causes some differences between us and Sweden. In the matter of silence is not a negative thing. Silence is good. Might make us uncomfortable, but if you are present in those silent moments, it gives the Swede a feeling that you are detailed, that you are intelligent, because you're thinking through those silences. Instead of just talking over them and filling those gaps, you are thinking about what you want to say. You're formulating, putting together what is going through your head. Now, I notice I say and in the Swedish culture, if I was to do that, I would almost be considered unintelligent because I wouldn't think through my pauses. I fill those pauses because they make me uncomfortable. So, but because they're non-hierarchical, they take a long time to make decisions. Because their decisions are made in teams and things are delegated out, it does take more time for them to get things done. But I have an example of that on the next slide, and I'll explain it when we get there. So the country itself has a flat tax rate of 22%. Sweden itself is also ranked 4th in the world in innovation. So here's my example. My example is from Oli. Love Oli. Okay? If an American group set out to build a railroad, they would try to find the best engineer, the best contractors, decide from where to where the railroad should go, build the team, and then they'd set off. When they meet an obstacle on the way, they would solve it as they go. That's the Americans. The Swedes would spend an extra year on planning and mapping, thinking of what could become a problem during the project and add the required manpower successively. When they run into problems, they have probably already anticipated them. I thought this was a great example to how this delegation and working in teams would go. They would delegate out who needs to solve which problems, and they would think of problems and add whatever they need to overcome those problems before they even started building the railroad. It's going to take them more time, but they're going to be more organized. They're going to get things done, and you know that railroad's going to be done right. Here's a list of some Swedish companies that you may have heard of that have actually changed world culture in some type of way. I'm going to talk about 3 of them, and I'm just going to cover them really generally. IKEA has changed the world in what it looks like to furnish your home, and the culture or not the culture, the belief of how a home should be designed and functionality and things like that, because Swedish furniture isn't just made for sitting on. Swedish furniture is built with drawers so you can have storage space. And a table doesn't just be a table. The table can, be moved and, not just moved. You don't just pick up and move the table, but I'm saying it has pulley systems in it so that, this middle section of the table can actually rise out to be a desk for when you work. And things like that, again, on the cutting edge of innovation because they're extremely good at innovation. Skype is another one. I know most of us here have heard of Skype. Again, changed and revolutionized the world and the world's culture and how we can communicate from continent to continent or across the street. You don't just need to call someone anymore. Now you can see them in person. So for a father that's out, fighting on a different continent, he can Skype home his family and see them instead of just hear their voices. Another one that's really popular among college students now is Spotify. And this has revolutionized and changed the culture and the way we listen to music. Instead of downloading it and listening to it on an MP3 player or listening to it online, we can now stream the music through Spotify, and you can download it and don't even need to be connected to the internet, and it's all done in one app. It's extremely easy, and again has changed the way we listen to music. So now we're going to take a look at some of these exports and imports. I don't know if you looked at number 1 on that list, but it was AstraZeneca, and they have actually developed out of the import and export categories that Sweden primarily deals in. And the number 1 category, again, you can go ahead and take a look and read. One thing I do want to point out here is that Sweden exports a lot of unfinished goods. So in their wood products, they're exporting a lot of pulp and a lot of things that haven't been fully manufactured yet. Same thing with their transportation. Lots of Swedish car parts, things like that. Germany is also big in their unfinished goods portion of their transportation. And if you take a look at Germany and Sweden's trading partners, they are trading partners with each other, both exporting and importing. Sweden imports a lot of their finished transportation and also exports a lot of their unfinished goods to Germany. And a little bit about the economy. Again, the economy is extremely stable, which provides for a low inflation rate. Their inflation rate's 0.05%, so it's virtually nothing. So again, if you were to invest in the country of Sweden, and you were to look at a real rate of what you're making, you don't have to subtract out inflation because it's virtually nothing. You'd subtract it out, but what 0.05% is virtually not going to change your numbers. And Sweden actually ranks 12th out of 30 on the lowest income gap. To give you a comparison, the United States ranks 29th. So again, on that level of equality, they want everyone included. So that's Sweden in a nutshell. Again, there's a lot more to it than that. I have a lot more references than this. These are just the references I used in this presentation. If you look in the bottom right, you can see where I have cited each slide and which source I used where. But thanks for tuning in. Give me some feedback. Let me know.